All right, let's dive right in. We're going to explore one of the most incredible stories in all of biology. It's a story of survival, but on a microscopic scale. We're talking about how every single one of your cells, right now, is solving a constant life or death traffic problem at its border. I want you to think about this for a second. Every cell in your body is basically its own little island. It's totally self-contained, floating in this huge ocean of, well, you. So to stay alive, it has to get supplies, things like nutrients and oxygen, and it has to get rid of its trash. But how? How does it control what comes in and what goes out? That's the billion-dollar question. And what's really amazing is that this challenge is totally universal. It doesn't matter if you're a plant's root hair trying to soak up minerals from the soil or a cell lining your own intestine absorbing your lunch, the fundamental problem is exactly the same. It's all about managing that border crossing. So, how do they pull it off? Well, let's start with the simplest, most elegant solution in the cell's toolkit. This is the one that takes, believe it or not, zero energy. It's a process called diffusion. And honestly, this is just pure physics. See, molecules are always zipping around randomly, bumping into each other. And because of that chaos, they naturally just spread out. They move from where they're super crowded to where there's more room to breathe. And the best part for the cell? It's completely free. It's passive. So here we can see it in action right at the cell membrane. Let's say there's a ton of oxygen outside the cell and not much inside. Well, those oxygen molecules are just going to naturally drift across the membrane, moving from the crowded side to the less crowded side. They're moving down what we call a concentration gradient, and they'll keep doing it until things are more or less evened out. It's nature just trying to find some balance. And listen, this isn't some abstract idea. This is happening in your body as we speak. When you take a breath, diffusion is what pulls oxygen into your blood and pushes carbon dioxide out. It's how your gut absorbs nutrients from your food. And for plants, it's how they grab the CO2 from the air to make their own food. Diffusion is, without a doubt, essential for life. Okay, but there's a special case of diffusion that is so incredibly important, it actually gets its own name. And it's all about the most important molecule for life as we know it, water. And that name is osmosis. Now, the key thing to remember is that this is still diffusion. It's still just molecules moving from high concentration to low. But here, we're talking specifically about water molecules. Water will always try to move from a place where there's a lot of it, a watery, dilute solution, to a place where there's less of it, like a more concentrated, salty, or sugary solution. The real hero of this story is the cell's partially permeable membrane. You can think of it like a very picky gatekeeper. It has these tiny pores that are just the right size for small water molecules to slip through. But bigger things dissolved in the water, like salt or sugar molecules, nope. They're too big, they're stuck. And that selective barrier is what makes the whole thing work. So why does this matter so much? Because for a living cell, getting the water balance wrong isn't just a small problem. It can be catastrophic. And the result of that imbalance is completely different for an animal cell versus a plant cell. It all comes down to one little thing, a cell wall. See, animal cells, like our own red blood cells, are just soft and squishy. They have no wall for support. So if you put one in a really concentrated, salty solution, all the water rushes out and the poor thing just shrivels up. But the other way is even worse. Put it in pure water, and water rushes in so fast that it swells up and literally bursts. Pop. But plant cells? Plant cells have a superpower, a strong, rigid cell wall. So when they lose water, they just get a bit limp or flaccid. This is actually why a plant wilts. But when they take on water, they don't burst. Instead, they swell up and push against that strong wall, becoming firm and turgid. That internal pressure is literally what holds the plant upright. So going with the flow is great. It's easy, it's efficient. But what happens when a cell needs something that's already more crowded inside than it is outside? What if it needs to swim against the current? For that job, cells have to use active transport. And this is the complete opposite of diffusion. This is a process that literally forces molecules to move against their natural flow, from a place of low concentration to high concentration. It is just like pushing a huge boulder up a hill, and as you can imagine, it requires a ton of energy. So let's just lay it out, side by side. Diffusion is passive. It's like coasting downhill, no energy needed, and it always goes from high concentration to low.
Active transport, on the other hand, is active. It's pushing that boulder uphill. It needs energy from the cell, and it moves things from low concentration to high. They're fundamentally opposite strategies for crossing the border.
So why would a cell ever go to all that trouble? Why spend all that precious energy? Because sometimes it absolutely has to. A plant root needs to grab every last mineral ion from the soil, even if the soil is nearly depleted. And your intestines need to pull in every last bit of valuable glucose from your food so it doesn't go to waste. Active transport is how cells hoard the good stuff. Okay, so we've seen 3 totally different ways that cells manage this constant traffic at their borders. Let's wrap it all up and look at the complete survival toolkit. And here they are, the cell's 3 essential tools. First, you've got diffusion, the simple, free, coasting downhill option. Then there's osmosis, that crucial balancing act specifically for water. And finally, you have active transport, the heavy-duty, powered pump for when you need to fight the current. Together, these 3 processes keep the whole operation running. When you really stop and think about it, it's pretty mind-blowing. These are just 3 simple physical processes, right? It's just molecules moving around. But they are the absolute foundation for pretty much everything we call biology. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredibly complex things in our world are built on top of such simple, elegant rules?